Yes, you are watching Look Up TV. This is the big conversation, and I'm so glad you are watching. Remember, as we continue with this conversation, I want to invite you to be part of it. Your voice counts, your opinion counts, and we just don't know how much power it holds until you speak to us on our comment section so we can share this with our panelists and the rest of the authorities probably watching this morning. Also, don't forget that we are on Twitter at LookUpTV, at Doris Anki. Whichever your opinion is, just hashtag The Morning Drift, because once you hashtag it, pardon me, it's easier for me to quickly pick it and share with the rest of the viewers. So please be an active member and participant in this conversation from back at home. My panelists are young. That's the one thing I want to acknowledge, and I'm very glad they are. They are also experts in different fields and very powerful for that matter. So I am looking forward to this conversation. Let me start with the advocate, Francis Mwaura. You're the advocate of High Court of Kenya. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Doris.
I'm so glad that you guys keep time. I mean, yes. Karibuni sana.
Indeed.
You want to say good morning and say something?
Yes, good morning, viewers. My name is Francis Mwaura. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I'm really honored to be here today.
Karibu.
Asante.
And finally, Aliyah.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Aliyah Abdi, and I'm a counseling psychologist. Excited to be here today morning.
I am so glad that you're all excited. You're both excited. We are, however, expecting someone else just to keep you, psychologically prepared, as we'll be looking at the preventive, measures to just keep suicide out of our society, out of our nation. So Esther will be joining us shortly. But first, ladies and gentlemen, to cue us into this conversation is a short video, very short actually, to just keep us in the mood and get us thinking already. Then we come in with the questions, the answers, and the conversation. Right here on The Morning Drift, this is the big conversation.
Suppose tomorrow you lost half your money and you're feeling depressed and your mind says, I want to die. Close your mouth, hold your nose like this for 2 minutes. Your body says, to hell with your money, I want to live. So I want to know the most important thing that's happening to you right now is life itself.
Everybody can. Everybody doesn't. Courage is the key to life itself. There are a lot of people who are born in situations where they say, I'll never get out of this, so they won't. I say to people who say, well, I would like to have done so and so and so. So you could have done it. So, well, I couldn't get out of here. Man, the bus runs every day.
All right, now, of course, I can identify Morgan Freeman there, and a lot of people, we just did not highlight everyone else, including the legendary Denzel Washington. A lot of people who have come up and, just share messages of motivation. That is basically what's going on social media right now. It's a group of people pumping depression into others. There's another lot that is trying to speak as much motivation to pump it into the youth and the nation. So there's pretty much something happening. Yeah, you're either pushed into it or you are helped grow out of it. And we want to understand now here on the big conversation how we can prevent suicide. And let's start with the right terminologies to use on set, because there was the concern by activists at some point, and also the Ministry of Health, on how the media was depicting suicide and not being sensitive about how we air it and what terminologies we use. So this could also be affecting victims as we're speaking. So I'll start with Aliyah before we also come into the legal perspective very, very keenly. This is actually a national issue. I don't even know if Kenyans knew there's a law that touches on suicide. So people use a lot of wrong terminologies when it comes to referring to victims of suicide and really suicide itself.
Right. Yeah. So the first terminology that we need to change in the society, and as a matter of fact, the media, like you said, media reporting is very key, right? Because the media reaches a lot of people at a short time. It's the fastest way to get information and raise awareness, right? So we don't say commit suicide. We die by suicide, because you commit a crime, you commit thefts, you commit terrorism, but you die by suicide. So this is very important because, like we will talk about later on, decriminalizing suicide, you know, because suicide is not a crime. It's a mental health problem.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'd like to start from there.
All right, and she's made it very clear, and you're one of the, you know, people in the forefront, ensuring that this is changed from commit suicide to die by suicide. But was it changed? As we speak this morning, was it even embraced? Because there's still a law that stands that suicide really is a crime, and that's why it was called commit suicide.
Yeah, and that's why it's required that we repeal 226. That we need to advocate for decriminalization of suicide by repealing section 226 of the Penal Code.
Okay.
So once we start, that's like the next step that needs to be done.
All right. So as we're speaking, it's not yet been done.
There
is a bill that's being tabled, but let's hear from the legislative arm of the government why we got to the place where we actually categorized suicide as a crime.
All right, thank you for this opportunity. First of all, we need to understand that colonialism never left Kenya. The white man might have left Kenya, but colonialism as a concept never left. And why am I saying so? Because if you look at section 226 of the Penal Code, which is still in effect to this day, it criminalizes an attempt to suicide by defining it as a misdemeanor. And as you look at, as I will talk about later, the court interpretations, you find that the courts often enforce this through custodial sentences ranging from between 2 to even 3 years, which is ironic because if you look at England and Wales, English people being our colonizers, they actually decriminalized suicide back in 1961.
All right.
That was even way before, you know, we got our independence. But yet, we are still within that kind of prison, mental prison, where we still view it as criminal. Yes.
All right.
And that's why that has been a problem.
All right, so as we're speaking, if you die by suicide, you attempt, and let's just talk about this two, you know, the ones that you touched on. There's the attempted suicide. And when you say attempted, at what level am I criminalized for attempting suicide? How is this approach? Is it that I tried and I did not die, so I was arraigned in court? I don't know. I'm trying to understand.
Yes, okay. An attempt to suicide is where a person tries to take away their life, probably by maybe ingesting poison or any other manner. But well, by good luck or, I don't know, bad, they do not get to die of the said attempt. Yes.
You are a counseling psychologist, and we want to take a look. Like you started by saying, this is a mental health issue. This person tried to take their own life or to die by suicide and did not, was not successful. And I'm coming to hear from you what period of time they start to go through the court process, because already they're dealing with something. So we're coming to that. But let's see what the statistics say, because COVID-19 came, we're always talking about statistics, teen pregnancies, and I feel it's now important to understand where we stand as a country when it comes to suicide, let alone mental health. Yeah, and what are we looking at? Why are we talking about this morning?
Okay, so according to statistics, this is from WHO, globally, 700,000 people die by suicide annually. This equals to one suicide every 40 seconds.
Every 40 seconds?
Every 40 seconds. And for every suicide, there's 25 attempts.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to repeat, like, for every suicide, there's 25 attempts, and one person in the world dies by suicide every 40 seconds. I don't know how many 40 seconds have passed since we started.
Yes, since I
So you
started
can
6
just
a.m.
imagine.
Yes.
And it's one of the leading causes of death, especially among the youth,
Yes.
ages between 15 to 27. So it's a serious public health problem, and it's not only in Kenya, it's a global problem that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of hearing that, I just want to come to you again, Aliyah, and I'm looking at a gender aspect. We are a cultural continent, and there's been a lot of social play, social agents, play when it comes to, well, men are under this kind of pressure. Well, the last time I checked, men would take their lives or die by suicide a lot more than the women would. I don't know if the statistics still say the same thing at this time.
Especially in low and middle income countries,
Okay.
the ratio is for 1.5 men.
Okay.
There's more than, the suicide ratio is 1.5 men to women. So I still don't understand why men are more prone to suicide. I don't know if they are not, it's because of the society and culture.
All right. Yeah, so let's just go back to the law. I wanted to understand where we're coming from and why it's a matter of agency or urgency that we talk about it. Now, I was talking to you about, it's been criminalized, okay? So she's saying 25 attempts. So you're talking about attempted suicide. This is one individual, and so I have attempted suicide, and this is what the law says. So how do I get a reign in court? Who's reporting me? How does it work for the judiciary corridors?
Now, like in every criminal process starts with a complaint. Now, normally, when an attempt to suicide has occurred, it's often a family member or a person, a witness, who probably has seen that occur and probably was the first on site, who often goes and has the same reported to the police. Other frontline workers who actually have that ability to be the first to report include doctors, although that was limited to the fact that back then there was a lot of stigma with relations to mental illness.
Okay.
However, once a criminal complaint is made, of course the police often launch an investigation. They said accused person, arrested person, is then arraigned before a court of law where they take plea. Under the normal court process, once they take plea, then there are several mentions before a hearing date is set. Of course, they can be released on, bail or bond. Like, in some cases, I've seen cases where persons have been released on even 200,000 shilling bonds. Though for purposes of identity of these persons, I would refrain to commenting on the same.
Yes.
Now, then afterwards, once a hearing is set, the hearing is conducted, there will be witnesses, and then afterwards, the court makes a determination. Unfortunately, a majority of these cases often go convicted. It's it's kind of like sticking up to them, like, you shouldn't do this.
Yes.
And that criminal element tends to re-victimize these individuals by further pushing criminal blame upon persons who are already suffering. Yes, so I think that is just basically the process.
I've loved to, hear the process. Usually when there's a murder case, allow me to compare to that. We hear a lot of the magistrate or the judge has requested that someone's mental health is tested. Were they okay when they were doing this? I don't know if that's part of it, because you probably didn't mention it, because these are the first people I feel. I don't know what the psychologists will say should be checked before they are actually convicted.
No, thank you.
Does it happen?
Thank you very much for reminding me. In fact, yes, it does. You see, by the time the person is set to be charged for attempt to suicide,
Yes.
they have to be, they often get evaluated, although it is never really a mandatory aspect.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's where the problem really starts, because you'll find that there's been a lot of kind of operationalization of the law in such a way that it's so mechanical.
All right.
Mechanical in the sense that despite the fact that there is now widespread knowledge on the fact that suicide is itself a mental illness, the said persons who are found to have attempted suicide are treated in such a dehumanizing manner. You would think that the law was meant for some kind of machines or something. And I think that detachment, therefore, kind of makes it a real problem, because you see, all the psychologists will have to do,
Yes.
will have to just do a mental assessment to determine, one, the competency
Okay.
to stand trial.
All right.
That's the first. And then secondly, the suicidal ideation, which is basically the inclination to suicide by this said individual. So high-risk individuals are often put under a lot of monitoring,
All right.
while low-risk individuals can often be, probably be released and just, as long as they can attend court and whatnot, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now I want to come back to you earlier. We've heard really what the procedure is, what happens. We'll come back to more on what is the penal code really saying, the consequences. You've mentioned some. But this is someone who is already battling. And we've also heard of cases of this person was convicted, was put in prison, but they committed. Okay. They took their lives again in prison. We've had cases where, inmates have died by suicide.
Yeah.
From a psychologist's perspective,
Yeah.
and of course, as we're looking at the bill now tabled in Parliament to decriminalize, from where you come from, why do we have to decriminalize, dying by suicide?
First things first, this person is already battling mental health and mental illness, right? So I believe rather than taking them to prison or jail, they need help. But you're re-traumatizing them, like he mentioned. Instead of that, you could assess them, like the process is done. Then the next step is you need to take them to a rehab. Or you check, do they need medication? Do they need rehabilitation? So prison is not the answer, because you're not helping this person in any way. If anything, you're making the situation worse than it already is.
All right.
So there's a lot of reasons why it needs to decriminalize. You're supposed to help the individual, because you're already you're taking them to prison. There's already a lot of situations and issues happening there. They're not going to be taken care of by a doctor, which they need. Because mental health is an illness just like any other disease.
All right.
If I have malaria, what happens? I go to see a doctor, I'm given medicine, I'm monitored over a period of time.
Okay.
It should be the same process.
All right. I want to hear from the advocate now. When judges, maybe you can share a few cases, stories with us, when they got to a particular verdict, what was considered? What was considered? Because there must have been a hearing, and the verdicts we usually, borrow from. Maybe that would be also helpful during the, the bill discussion.
All right. Thank you for that question. It's really unfortunate that you see, judges are only knowledgeable in the law, and while there is always the saying that lawyers are knowledgeable in everything, unfortunately, a jack of all trades is probably knows everything, but is really a master of one anyway. So here's the problem.
All right.
You find that the judge will be brought for a person, and the only question they'll be asking is this person guilty of the crime? The evidence, does the evidence point out to this? Let me point out to a reported case,
Yes.
Republic versus John Wachira. The year is 2011. The person in question had attempted suicide. By God's grace, they did not die, or whatever grace that was. And then subsequently they get arrested, arraigned in court, the court process continues, and subsequently determination is made. 3 years jail. When you look at that case, it's really ironic that this is considered a misdemeanor. The offense itself is a misdemeanor by virtue of the letter of the law, and yet the penalty is so severe that it often makes you wonder, what exactly is happening here? Now here is where the judges often come short. They are not mental experts.
All right.
They are legal experts.
So now let's, because you're here and you're a
Yes.
legal expert,
Yes.
I know there are other, you're a psychologist, and I know there are other ways of dealing with these issues. Like, it's just like any other relationship matter. These people are having some issue themselves, introspectively, or I don't know, it's an intra-something dilemma. What happened to ADR and mediation? Do you guys, do lawyers, because you're speaking from a very, I don't know, sober place, you know, we hardly get advocates who would say the law is falling short on this. Is there anything that legislators have, you know, not legislators, pardon me, but the legal fraternity has tabled or is working on and pushing to actually, you know, play part in what is now being discussed? Because at the end of the day, you've said it doesn't match up, but you see other advocates, how do you represent these people as well? Because do they get representatives? Do you also advocate for victims?
All right. Thank you for that question, Doris. So the thing is, there are alternative dispute resolution
Yes.
mechanisms by virtue of Article 159 of the Constitution. Some of these include arbitration, mediation, and indeed there have been deliberate efforts by the judiciary through the different stewards, from Mutunga, who was the Chief Justice Emeritus of the Constitution under the new dispensation, and then subsequently other Chief Justices, including Maraga. However, again, there has been a challenge, and the challenge here goes particularly and squarely upon the fact that the law really mandates the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecution to actually formulate, to actually prosecute individuals. That is the Constitution. However, I also want to commend the office through its leader, Nurdin Haji. This is because subsequently, after taking office, he brought in several reforms, among them other alternative methods under the criminal justice system. An example would be diversion. Diversion here basically is where instead of the office, the prosecutors, pursuing criminal punishment, they often look at other alternatives which can better this person. So for instance, if somebody has been found loitering and causing public nuisance as a result of, say, substance abuse like alcohol, they are in fact mandated to attend rehab.
Does it work for, I want us to really, you know, narrow down to this
Now
victims.
to that,
Yes, because of time, we're probably
No,
going
right.
to let the legal aspect go and bring in the recommendation, because now we just want to look at, do this alternative work for the, you know, victims of, you know, attempted suicide? Are they considered?
While I may not know exact case-by-case basis,
Yes.
I do believe that they can work because they have been proven clinically to actually work. Because if a person is actually found to have a suicidal ideation or an inclination to commit suicide, they can be taken through a step-by-step process, they can be empowered, they can be rehabilitated and brought back to a point of normalcy. So yes, I believe it can work.
All right, so I know we're going to, you know, let the legal perspective leave our side shortly, but you want to have a conclusion on, you know, why it would be, you know, from your perspective, where you sit as a lawyer, as an advocate, why you would advise that we really do decriminalize suicide, and if it would be a preventive measure. Because where I sit, I feel Kenyans are a bit either more afraid, so they do it in fear, so they leave a note and go anyway. Nobody wants to talk to someone about it, because what if we say you attempted and I report as a family member that I'm afraid? Because when the family members report, they're probably doing it in love, not because they hope that you're protected, but then you are arraigned in court. So your final remarks on that as we wind up with you and release you.
So my final remarks would be this.
Yes.
Indeed, there is the possibility for dealing with these suicidal cases and suicidal ideation cases, whereby we look at what is the source of the problem. A majority of people actually are living in poverty, they are impoverished, they have facing discrimination, they are facing all sorts of challenges. And if we can have empowerment programs, actual awareness about mental health and places to get help, and even the fact that we can have more social empowerment programs, as well as education, re-education, as well as also employment opportunities. We know employment is also a problem in Kenya. Apparently, we can actually reduce, probably not eradicate altogether, but we can actually reduce these numbers significantly. I believe there is still hope.
All right. Yes. So we're looking forward to more discussions with you on the legal perspective representation. All right, now so far we have been discussing, the legal aspects of suicide, and of course they have, criminalized suicide, and they say you commit suicide, so it's pretty much you're committing a crime. And now it's being tabled in, of course, in the Legislative House. You have this amended to decriminalize it and have people helped rather than convicted for it. And we are asking, is it that we've instilled fear in people, pushing them further into committing what they call a crime, or are we helping by actually having it decriminalized? So maybe this would make it a more social aspect and we could reduce it. It's a question we're asking this morning. What are your sentiments on how fast we should actually work on preventive measures of suicide rather than actually convicting victims, who, according to statistics given to us by Aliyah this morning, is that in one suicide, which happens every 40 seconds, there's been about 25 attempts. Did you know that? And I feel that's really, really serious. But of course, joining us on set, as I said earlier on, as we're looking at now, how do we actively prevent dying by suicide, is Esther. Esther, welcome on set.
Thank you so much.
The viewer hasn't heard from you. Aliyah, welcome back.
Thank you.
So just say good morning to the viewer again, Esther, and familiarize with them, and just your opening remarks.
Thank you so much. My name is Esther Nduku. I'm a mental health ambassador, and also I'm a transformational coach. I'm a survivor of severe depression, cyberbullying, and attempted suicide in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Aliyah here is a psychologist. And Aliyah, I want you to first, bring us up to speed on the science that somebody is going through, what she has overcome, how, because suicide is like the last stage after a long battle of depression. And she's saying this was caused by, cyberbullying. There's a lot of stigma to it, so there's always a cause. But before we look at the cause, what are the signs that you're headed that direction?
So some of the signs that you should be looking out for is when you start to lose interest in things you were once interested in, things you used to enjoy doing, and you don't find the thrill in it anymore. Mm-hmm. There's that. And also, like, if you're not able to get out of bed in the morning, do daily activities, go to work, hygiene, these are some of the signs to look out for. When someone starts to withdraw themselves from their friends, from their family, from the society, there's an underlying issue that needs to be addressed there.
I will challenge you, because we've had this conversation not once, not twice. Psychologists are always saying when they start withdrawing, when they start but for how long? Everyone has mood swings at some point in time. Everyone is grieving at some point in time. When do we know that this is extremely withdrawing from the society? I think it's high time people actually know at what level of withdrawal, because sometimes people say, I just want space.
There's that space for like 1 week, but like if it lasts for like 3 to 6 months, then there's something that needs to be done. Of course, we have bad days. You know? It's normal. You have to have bad days. So, but if it prolongs for a period of time, some mental issues like if it lasts like for more than 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, then you need to see a specialist.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to hear from Esther. Esther, you overcame. Can you hear a bit of your story? Yes, and why you have attempted.
Yeah, true.
We really want to hear your story, and we don't want to cut you short, but you can do your summary as comfortable as you are.
Yeah.
I would love to know. If someone's watching back at home and they would want to get their inspiration from you.
Well, just to summarize it, is that I've gone through a lot of childhood trauma, and this was contributed by dysfunctional family, raised by a single mom. And, you know, my mom was also fighting her own demons, let me say it that way. And unfortunately, it affected us a lot. Because so many times when someone is going through something, especially parents, they project the pain to their children. So out of that, I was looking for ways, because I grew up without love, without being appreciated, without being cared for. I was always alone. And therefore, I was seeking for ways on how I can be accepted, because I'd faced so much rejection. And that is how I ended up getting married as a young girl back then. And unfortunately, the marriage never worked. And you can imagine the shame which comes with separation. And also being a single mom, who has been raised by a single mom. It's too much, you know, for someone to go through. So all the bile that I've been going through since I was a young child, and now I'm an adult and I'm facing a lot of struggles in life, it led me to, you know, depression. And as I was going through the depression, now I've separated with this man, and I'm trying to raise my 2 girls alone. And I'm jobless, because at that time I dropped out of college, actually, for me to settle down with this person. When I was trying to heal, now cyberbullying came.
Okay.
And you can imagine, sometime back in 2017, 2016, we had a group by the name Kilimani Moms and Dads and Sensei.
Oh, yeah, so it was very, very,
Yeah.
you know, common.
Yeah, and therefore I was exposed there, and the headline was just, you know, the worst of it all. Because someone created a fake story about me, and they posted it there, and that was, you know, the #1 Kamba prostitute, I don't know, something of the sort.
Okay.
And, you know, sometimes when you don't have the support, especially from the people near you, like the family, you know, it's a bit tough. And you're trying to explain yourself, you're trying to tell people that this is not me, you know, this is a fake story about me. But they're like questioning you a lot. And the only thing left is that I have to end it all, because no one believes me. And actually, it never took, I mean, like, you know, people to think about committing suicide, it takes time. For me, it took less than 24 hours to think about it, suicide, for the first time. And all I wanted was just to go buy drugs, and if drugs are not going to work, I just have to pick something that is going to make me die. But I thank God anyway, by God's grace, I'm still here to give the story. I never killed myself.
All right.
I managed to speak to someone, and that is why I usually encourage people to speak out. Open up to someone. You never know who is going to listen to you, whether it's a stranger. Sometimes the people you want to talk to, the friends that you have, they might not listen to you. They might not help, because there's so much stigma when it comes to mental health issues.
All right.
I opened up to a stranger online. And
online?
Online.
All right.
In Facebook, actually. It was around 2 in the morning. And I was so much thinking about, I want to end my life. Actually, during the day, I tried it. But something was just pushing me not to. And I usually say that maybe that was my kids. So I spoke to someone online, Facebook, just like, why are you not asleep? And
a random person?
Yeah, a random person.
Okay.
And we had a conversation. And thereafter now, I was able to speak about what I was going through. And finally, that was my journey now to rescue myself from everything that I was going through.
All right, Esther, I'm sorry to cut you short. We're coming into your healing journey.
Yeah.
Because that's where our discussion is at, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I believe you are a warrior in your own self. And I want to hear from the psychologist. This is somebody we are looking at being convicted, you know, in court, you know, after every battle she's had. And I want to hear from you. She's mentioned a few courses. things that pushed her there. Those cyberbullying, those stigmatization, single motherhood, you know, and I want to hear more from you. There are other causes that people probably are not taking seriously, yeah, psychologically.
So one of the main causes usually is, like she mentioned as well, is childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Childhood trauma plays a big role on who we are as adults, you know. Something small as decision making, time management, planning yourself, you know. If you look back and if you go back in time and you look at the root cause, something definitely happened during your childhood, you know. So childhood trauma is like one of the biggest causes of mental health that is not usually addressed, you know.
And I want us to go step by step, I know because of time, and I also want to hear from you. I'll come back to your professional, you know, expert advice. Talking about your childhood trauma, what do you think would have been done differently for you at that stage that would have saved you this whole lot of battle? As a child then, what would you tell your mom? What would they have done? And then I'll come back to you on your advice, the same on the childhood trauma as we continue.
You know, we live in a society whereby people are focused on just creating wealth, money. I'm a parent too, so you find that I wake up at 6 in the morning and I come back home at 9. I don't have time with my kids. I don't know what they are going through. And, you know, because we have the house helps, you know, the child belongs to the house help. So the only time I'm spending with my parents, maybe it's only during the weekends. And probably maybe on Sundays.
Yes.
So what happens on Sundays? We wake up in the morning, we prepare ourselves, we go to church, and then we come back home. Another thing is that there was too much violence between my mom and dad. So for me, I wish I never saw that. You know, every time they are quarreling, sometimes I see my dad beating my mom. It was just, you know, I don't know how I can explain it. So that instilled too much fear and anger in me, such that even when I'm in a relationship back then, when I was growing up now, I'm in relationships, and you find that whenever I have an argument with anyone, not just a boyfriend, even my friends, there's so much anger because I've seen violence at home. So this affected me a lot. And I wish that, you know, as much as we have misunderstandings in relationships, in marriages, it's good to protect the kids. Think about what will happen to that child. At the same time, it's good to, you know, create a good bond. It's not just about taking your child to school, I mean, giving them good clothes and all that, a good lifestyle. That bond, you know, learning them about their inner self, we need to create that.
All right.
Yeah, and that's how we are going to raise a healthy generation.
I'm actually glad, and she said something about I did not feel loved at some point. So I don't know, professionally, you would want to tell us how parents should ensure that childhood traumas, because childhood traumas could come from schools as well, your immediate neighbor. So what should we do to ensure this is a healthy child, they don't have to battle or recover from their childhood in adulthood?
So I'd like to talk about actually how to deal with and cope and with childhood trauma in your adult life. So first things first, you need to acknowledge and recognize the trauma for what it is. So first you acknowledge and recognize the trauma. Then you need to accept, you know, acceptance, like this has happened to me, what can I do now? How can I move forward? It is what it is, it's happened, you know. So what's the way forward, you know? And then the other thing is you need to be patient with yourself, first things first.
Have enough grace.
Have enough grace, be patient with yourself, you know. Change your habits, your lifestyle, you know, look for healthier coping mechanisms. So those are some of the few things, and also seek support, you know, support system. You know, you need to recognize that and acknowledge your support system. So those are some of the ways to address the childhood trauma for a better and healthier mental
And I like
state.
when what you're saying is what she's actually doing. Could you tell us how you joined the Zumba group and what it did for you even through your healing journey? Because that's where we are at. We're really trying to prevent the next life. All right, so how are you coping? You've kept yourself afloat, you are firm in your healing journey. Is it Zumba?
I joined Zumba actually a few weeks ago after healing. Yeah.
After healing?
After healing.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because my main reason to join Zumba is I just want to let people understand what is mental health. Because sometimes you find people are just coming for Zumba. They don't know the effects of Zumba or maybe physical exercise. So about my healing, actually I can say it was all about speaking out and sharing with others who have gone through the same issues like mine. And at the same time, being able to face that little Esther, that little girl that I was so scared of, unmasking what I was going through. Sometimes we don't want to speak about some of these things. We are so scared. People will judge us. And unfortunately, also you find that because I've grown up in church, when you go to church and you say that you're depressed, what will happen?
Let's ask them.
They associate that with spiritual problems.
All right, Esther, just allow me to go back to the viewer again, and they could confirm or deny that this is actually happening.
Yeah.
Church should be your first shelter. The religious leaders should be the first embrace.
Yeah.
But you're saying when you go to church, then you are superstitiously categorized as you're probably possessed.
Yes.
All right. I hope you're following.
Yeah.
And you might have your comments after how she walks us through her healing. Yes.
Yeah. So in my journey to healing, the first place that I'm going to get help was the church. But unfortunately, it never worked because it was all about maombi. You are bewitched. People will always have something to say.
Okay.
And, after opening up to that stranger now online, I thank God because through him, I managed now to also talk to other few people. And we made, like a safe space for us.
Safe space.
Yes, a safe space whereby now we could talk about these things without fear. And that is how now finally I managed to join a bigger platform in Facebook, whereby now we have so many people who are going through these issues, and also others who are managing them, because someone with bipolar, for example, they are managing it. Okay. And through that, I started now loving myself, accepting myself, and, not blaming me for what I went through. Okay. And at the same time, I was in a position also to talk to my mom, though it was very difficult. This is Africa. You can't just tell your mom that, you made me go through this.
That was very strong. This is Africa.
Yeah.
Wow. Esther, would you allow me to talk to Aliyah on that? When you say this is Africa, how is the fight been for the space of, mental health in this country? Being the first place you went to was the church, which we of course are hoping is one of the pillars in this fight. And again, this time she has said this is Africa. Yeah. We want to hear from you on are we going to win this fight?
Slowly but sure, yes.
Okay.
But this is Africa, of course, like as she said, it's a taboo. Mental health, it's a taboo. We hear all these words like if you're mentally ill, you're name tagged, wazimu, cheesy, So there's a lot of stigmatization around mental health and also mental health workers, because they say if you're a psychiatrist, weni daktari ya wazimu, so you must be crazy as well, So we don't talk about it a lot as we should in the cultural context, back at home in the communities, We need to, it's a conversation that needs to be brought up on a daily basis. And that's why I say COVID-19 has been a blessing in disguise.
Okay.
Because before COVID, we didn't hear about mental health. No one talked about mental health, The government really didn't focus on mental health. And when they started realizing the importance of mental health and mental health workers is when people are being put in isolation camps, right? And people were trying to run away, jump over the fence and all that. So that's when the people were like, where are the mental health workers, where are the psychologists, where are the counselors, people, you need to calm people down, Yes. So it's a topic that has started to come up.
All right. And
hopefully it will grow.
And I like that you're mentioning that the conversations are picking up. Esther, so far with, you said after you healed, why didn't you join Zumba? before you fully felt healed? Because some people feel that, like the psychologist would tell us, divert your energy. You know, during that healing, divert it into the dancing, go to salsa, you know, join some sort of groups. But you're like, you know what, I need to finish this out first. Or was it not planned?
Okay, I can say it was not planned.
Okay.
And at the same time, when you hear Zumba, as I mentioned, this is Africa, you'll start feeling that this thing is expensive. Every time you hear about exercise, going to the gym, it's expensive. We don't value ourselves.
Okay.
We always check on how much is it. But after I have healed and everything has happened, I've done a lot. I've been trying to, you know, run here and there, doing a zero suicide campaign in the country. I met someone who told me that I think it's good for you to come and join Zumba finally. You're going to love it, because I fell in love with dancing actually. When I was going through depression, that is when I discovered my talent in dancing. Can you imagine? Because I became an alcoholic. I used to drink a lot. So when I go to the clubs, what will happen? I'm just there shaking myself, you know, because I just want to forget everything that I'm going through. Yeah, so finally I joined Zumba, and Zumba is just amazing, because actually the moment you're going through a mental problem and you exercise, it's not just about dancing only, also taking a walk, cycling, and all that, doing chores in the house, activities, something that will involve your muscles. It really helps to relieve stress, anxiety, and also it like boosts your energy. You know, you have this positive energy. If your moods were low, you'll find that you're up. Also, another thing is that it really gives someone a self-esteem, higher self-esteem. Yeah, so there are so many effects when it comes to physical health or maybe Zumba with mental health.
All right, amazing.
For example, for me, after healing and everything, I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder. I manage it. Yeah, and I wish that people would just come out and say, I am like this. Yeah, yeah. So it helps me a lot. Yeah.
I like when you say that, because, you know, you talked about cost. And really that plays a huge role in people not addressing their mental health issues.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you, because at the end of the day, you have to get medication for some of these things. When you're not able to manage it, it pushes you to that extent where the best you can do, because even when you have this, like you said, you used to drink and go to clubs, so at the end of the day, you come back to the cycle. So I don't know what you have to say as a psychologist, because we really have to save a life. Could they pump this money, save it for medication? The rehabs, are they even affordable?
So that's like one of the biggest barriers to accessing mental health, you know, is the cost. You know, it's very expensive. For example, you can look at therapy.
Yes.
How much is a therapy session for 1 hour? Like minimum 2,000, 3,000, you know? This is where people are, majority of the people are low income, you know? We survive on $1 a day. You know, how can we afford that? And another barrier is that it's really expensive, the rehabs, you know?
Are they even enough?
Are they enough? Are they regulated? Is there a board that's looking at them? Are they doing the right things, you know? Another thing is there's not enough mental health institutions, you know? And if they are, they're all segregated in one place, you know, in urban areas. You know, if you look at most of the rehabs, mental health institutions, if you look at the mental health workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, they're all in one place, you know. It's hard to find psychiatrists in like Wajir or, you know, Turkana. So there's a lot of barriers that's stopping people from being better mentally.
How can we break these barriers? Because today, I think years down the line, even after independence, we keep saying this is what exists. Can we bring in recommendations? Esther, what do you think ought to be done? Because you have suffered this, you have battled this. You needed support at the time. What can we do better? Because this is what it is. Rehabs are expensive, yes. Therapists and psychotherapists are expensive. The rehabs are, you know, in urban areas. Well, what would be your recommendations for that Mama Mboga back at home who's also a single mom and needs the same help before they actually die by suicide?
Okay, I will start by breaking it down for you, because I've been, you know, in the grassroots.
Yes.
Almost zero budget is allocated for mental health in this country.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%. Number two
Wow.
is that when we talk about NHIF or health insurance, to be honest, mental health is not covered. Another thing is that right now, even we go to Mathare Hospital, for example, just consultation fee, it's 10,000 shillings. How many people can afford that? How many psychiatrists or psychologists do we have in the country serving over 50 million people? How many mental health facilities do we have? We talk about Mathare Hospital, we talk about, I don't know which other hospitals, less than even 20 hospitals with mental health facilities. So right now, someone somewhere in Wajir or someone somewhere in Kitui, and they may be facing schizophrenia, how are they going to get help? So we need to start from the government.
All right.
A task force was formed, yes, back in 2015.
Yes.
But to 2019. But what is happening? Is there anything? Do we have any results about it?
Please, you need to respond to that, and just don't forget anything else you say after.
Okay.
Is anything happening? Is the government doing anything?
Yes, it is. The task force was, in 2019, the president addressed that mental health is becoming
A national
problem.
Yes.
And I was having a conversation with the advocate earlier on,
Yes.
and we said that mental health needs to be declared a national public health emergency, you know. And as you said, the task force, what is being done from the task force that was formed in 2019, so they went around the country, all the 47 counties, you know, assessing the situations in the mental health facilities. Of course, they're not in good conditions because of the budget allocation, you know. We have no money, you know, you can't really do much. You have to do what you have to do with what you have. So it all goes back down to the government.
National government.
National government, county government, non-state actors, you know. The government can't do all this by itself. We need to involve non-state actors, you know.
All right.
Yeah.
And really, as we are speaking, I am very intentional about, I might not wait for the government for the next 1 year.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm having these conversations almost every year. And it's been word, and we're seeing roads coming up, infrastructure are doing well, people looking at school. The CBC was just, you know, brought in, the things are shaping up. But for how long are we speaking about mental health? And we're still losing lives. You said in 40 seconds?
1%.
So if the authorities are watching this morning, would love to know for how long are we losing Kenyan lives, not just the pandemic. I mean, masks were brought in, sanitizers were brought in, aid is brought in, but how much aid and support is given to mental health? And let me just read a comment here. Jack Mburu is saying he's tuned from Raraka. Thank you very much, Jack. And Ruth Onesmus is saying, following the conversation closely. So before we have our closing remarks, you just were saying something about the facts laid down on the current situation of mental health in the country, being a warrior and also a mental health ambassador.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would encourage the government to embrace the idea of opening facilities and also having the free counseling services in the country. Because, you know, people, you know, poverty, honestly, in this country, it's something, you know, whereby you will find that, am I going to use these 100 shillings to see a counselor, or am I going to buy food?
Okay.
So what if we have mental health facilities near to ourselves, even in the chief's camps?
Okay.
What if we have a counselor there, someone that I can just go there and talk to? Another thing is also whereby we have to embrace the idea of mental health first aid, like, you know, people need trainings. Even yule mzee wa kijiji, they need to understand what is mental health. How do I know that someone is depressed?
They're not bewitched.
Yeah, they are not bewitched. Like even my mom, even now, like I'm always training my mom, to be honest, what is depression? If someone wants to commit suicide, how will you know? Because I'm smiling, but inside, I'm dead.
And let's go there. We're wrapping up. I like the ideas you've given, and I hope they're watching. If they now want to commit suicide, but don't use that, they want to die by suicide, how do I know it's gotten to that extent? Because most of the times they're enclosed somewhere. They've been lost for about 6 months. We don't get to track them until then. How do we ensure? Because did you tell anyone you were going to try it?
And no.
Were they able to track and know she's about to do it? But as a psychologist, how am I supposed to know? How should I save them? It's so hard.
It's really hard because it has to come from them first. They have to want help, you know. You can't help someone if they don't want to be helped, you know.
Okay.
That's why I said accept first. You know,
right.
you're actually going through something. And like when she mentioned about the trainings, I'd like to tell everybody that there's a training, a free course online called Psychological First Aid, in short PFA. So it teaches you a lot, you know, like about debriefing, what you should, how to assess a situation, how to intervene, how to link and connect people to the available services. So
please say what it's called again, so they can start looking it up and taking the classes.
Psychological First Aid, PFA.
All right.
Yeah.
And I like that we've all, you know, come up with very important things here. We're following closely on the bill on decriminalizing suicide. Personally, I mean, I shouldn't talk about it, but I have my own reserved comments. But we're looking at a nation that we don't have to pretend, you know, we're fighting other things, including crime, which is stealing and, you know, robbery. But we are taking Kenyan lives by not pumping the right money into what really is claiming most lives. Ladies, thank you for having quite a candid conversation on what is very sensitive. And please keep us in tabs. And of course, our advocate was here earlier on, being very open about the loopholes in the law that have criminalized, you know, taking your life or dying by suicide. I still am looking forward to your sentiments. Just go check out on the bill as well. And this is, of course, Francis Muroki saying thanks for the support. This is really heartfelt.
Yeah, and also as we wind up, you know, this thing of you can't check up on the other person. It's something that is killing a lot of people.
We only meet in funerals.
You will never
and
know
weddings.
who wants to commit suicide. You'll never know whether someone is depressed until you check up on them.
Okay.
Just check up on them. Say hello to them. How are you? You're so beautiful. Like let's embrace this idea of complimenting people, because it's through that they are able to speak out and to open up about the issues they're fighting inside.
All right. So Kenyans, can we be more warm starting from the social media? And next time we're having a conversation, we will speak about the role of social media very seriously. Maybe instead of criminalizing suicide, we need to start criminalizing social media.